Cultural appropriation. What is it? Well, in its simplest terms, it is the adaptation of customs, practices, or ideas that originate from one culture and is implemented into another. Now, cultural appropriation has become a more discussed topic in recent years as we're becoming stricter in what we allow in our society. So, why is cultural appropriation on the list of subjects then, you may wonder? Well, the fact is that it becomes controversial when the culture that is taking someone else's practice is from a dominant culture, this dominant culture mainly being that of Western culture. But what are the effects of a culture such as the West adopting a practice from, let's say, Africa? Well, the effect is the power imbalance between the two, as the dominant culture, that being Western, is taking something from a culture that has been systematically oppressed. Now, a great example is to look at a practice which the United States adopted from Africa, that being the traditional African style of hair, cornrows. Many celebrities have over the years worn cornrows and have been praised for being bold and stylish. However, when an African American woman wore cornrows to a job interview, she was denied the job on the sole purpose of her wearing cornrows, as the company wanted to project a professional and businesslike image. However, the most important effect to acknowledge when dealing with cultural appropriation is that which follows for those cultures that have their cultures adapted to others. And that is the cultural assimilation, where marginalized cultures have no choice but to adapt to the standards set by the dominant culture. More so, they must adopt elements from dominant cultures to survive. As an example, looking at indigenous children who are punished because they speak their native tongue at school, more so white schools. This assimilation leads to minority cultures slowly but surely disappearing. So, now that we are aware of cultural appropriation, we delve deeper into the rabbit's hole and look at some more profound examples. One of them being none other than the Ayahuasca ceremony. Now, the Ayahuasca ceremony originates from South America, more so the indigenous people of the rainforest. They have used ayahuasca for thousands of years, with evidence of this found in a cave in Bolivia back in 2010, where tools associated with ayahuasca was found. However, in the past 10 years, the demand for ayahuasca has increased tremendously, as the ayahuasca ceremony has been adapted to Westerners seeking a spiritual journey in the heart of the Amazon rainforests. It's through ayahuasca retreats that people all over the world come and partake in these rituals. These rituals in the past consisted of a group of few sitting with a shaman in the forest, being one with nature, to what it is today, a week at a retreat, going to the spa during the day and sharing stories with other tourists, and at night consuming ayahuasca in big groups in what could just as easily be a yoga hall. And that is where we come to the second example of cultural appropriation: yoga. A philosophical and physiological practice put down by Patanjali around 100 BC that today has become something entirely different, with many today referring yoga to as mindful stretching. So, like the ayahuasca ceremony, yoga too has experienced the effects of cultural appropriation, specifically from Western culture. Now, yoga saw the effects of the West back in 1757, when it was prohibited by colonists in an attempt to erase Indian culture, which lasted until 1947. However, yoga appealed to Westerners as it allowed them to experience another culture, but also being able to focus on themselves and by the 60s, yoga was a popular part of the Western culture, mostly so the United States, where it was commodified and appropriated to the West, just as India was trying to reclaim and rebuild its culture following its independence. Now, in the case of yoga, there are two main issues regarding cultural appropriation. One is the sterilization of yoga, where references to the roots and history of the practices are erased to make Western practitioners comfortable. And the second is the exodification and commercialization of yoga and Indian culture, with products such as leggings with Hindu deities on them or t-shirts with Namaste in bed. So, both issues are problematic, with the first one attempting to do what the initial colonization tried to do by erasing Indian culture, whilst the other one is just plain offensive. So, now we know cultural appropriation is something which should not be taken lightly, as it does in fact have a large impact, as people are having to adapt because Western cultures want something new. And in a sense, what cultural appropriation is in fact theft, which should not be celebrated, but in fact punished.